So this week we're talking again around innovative teaching, and let's get into the practical. How do we do it? How do we bring these concepts to life? And, one of my favorite stories that I talk about, and then I want to hear from some of yours, is, so let me kind of distill it. So like, what is the teaching thing? It is using the here and now in the classroom. What is it? Using the here and now in the classroom. So I'll give you an example. So I was teaching like basic counseling skills in a class once, and it wasn't in the tech class, but I think it was beforehand to try to like scaffold what we were doing. I was teaching them from Ivy and Ivy, the paraphrase, the summary, the encourager, and I had a student that just raised their hand, and they were like, "This isn't going to work." Okay, now I'm in shock because they're pushing back and like putting me on blast in front of the whole class, right? So what do? I'm like, okay, I have to use what I'm teaching right now to bring it to life, right? So I was like, it sounds like you just don't feel like this is going to work, and you're wanting to connect with folks and you don't feel like this is the way to do it. And they're like, exactly, it's about being authentic, and I just kept on using those. I was like, right, you want to be authentic and you don't feel like this is the way to do it. And like we're going back and forth, and at this point the whole class is seeing what's happening. And then I'm like, time out. What was that like for you? And she's like, oh, right? So I think for me, it's like bringing the here and now into the classroom. That student now knows that these skills work, because without her realizing it, those skills were being kind of used with her as well. So I'd love to hear from all of you on like, what is that, practical advice you have for innovative teaching?
I'm a relational person, and one thing that I bring that into the class and also try to model that with my student in the class. There was an incident that happened in my multicultural class where that was in the spring. In the spring, there are a lot of things going on in the economy, the political structure and everything. And, broaching conversation around politics triggers a lot. So we were having the conversation in class, and I noticed that two of my students were, one expressed herself, that's one thing in the class, talk about what's coming up for you, bring your experiences, no experiences out of the table, bring your experience, we'll learn from each other there. And she was talking about our experience and also in relation to the political climate at that moment. And another student now tried to not really shut her down, but combat with what she was saying, and I had to take a pause. We had to take a pause there, and I went back to, okay, your experience is different from another person's experience. We are not in the class to be right, because that's not what we are teaching here. You're not teaching that our experience is ours and your experience is theirs, just like your client's experience are theirs. You're not there to judge your client whether what the experience is right or wrong. So, and I was able to help the two of them see that I respect your experience, I respect your experience, we respect each other's experience, but how do we work together and learn from each other? That's the most important thing. It's not trying to prove that you're right, I'm wrong. No, but how do we learn and help each other? And I think that has been helpful in the class, in almost all of my classes, to see that, okay, we respect each other, we respect each other's experiences, and we learn from each other. We are not there to judge.
I think for you, what I'm hearing is what I'm working on, which is like slow it down and ask the big open-ended question. Slow it down and ask the big open-ended question is like one of your go-to teaching things. Really cool.
Yeah, I think, so what comes to mind for me just a majority of my teaching experience has been online, both synchronous and asynchronous. And so thinking about how to maybe translate some of these strategies, especially some of these relational strategies, in an online capacity. And it requires some creativity and, and kind of flexibility with that. So one of the things that we've done, kind of one of the ongoing assignments that I've had over the course of the semester, and it was in a trauma class. And this is an asynchronous class, and you're covering trauma, which is really challenging. It's really challenging for like the heaviness of the content and the kind of processing that maybe needs to occur entirely asynchronously. So one of the ways that I worked to try to bring in some of that processing was replacing discussion boards. And if you have taken a class, I don't know, in the last 10 years online, you know what a discussion board is. And students generally don't prefer discussion boards. And so replacing that with what we called small talks instead. And so they formed a small group that they kept over the course of the semester. And then just at intermittent times over the course of the semester, probably 8 to 10, they met with their small group just to process. They recorded it, and not really, mostly for me to also then be able to interact. So they recorded their processing, but really it was just a space of like, we read some really heavy content this week, or we watched this really heavy video. Let's talk about it. And then I was able to record responses. They would ask me questions, and then I was able to record responses back to them to really kind of simulate as much as we could without a synchronous component, some of the synchronous conversation. And again, that like processing and holding container, I think for students, and got really positive feedback about it, even though there's sometimes a resistance to like, we're too busy, we can't schedule things, but really recognizing like it was needed for that class in particular. So that's one kind of method or strategy that I've used in the online teaching capacity.
And what I heard is like, how do you, if you're doing like a checkbox with students, that's not going to go well. How do you really try to get them to like get connected to it? So you create like a small little community within a bigger community for them to hold each other accountable and all that. Really great. What about you, Dr. Munoz?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a bit of a prima donna, and it doesn't matter what class I'm teaching, I can immediately move into role play. So, for example, I've had, I don't know, I'm just real lucky I can find students, I get a sense that they have a real hard time with patriarchy, so I become this misogynist, evil client just to let them get a sense of that. And then another thing that I've done actually with the techniques class, I will sit in the middle and then each one will ask me a question. And if it resonates, I may let them do the next question. If it doesn't resonate, I move to the next one, and so on and so forth. And it's like having a session, but I have like 12 or 15 or 18 therapists. And then, you know, of course, you know, it's always important when I talk about techniques or anything we do, A, you introduce it, B, you do it, and C, you reflect on it. You deconstruct it and, you know, talk about it. So, yeah, that one I thoroughly enjoy really making my students uncomfortable. Yeah. In a nice way.
But good learning is creating the psychological safety, and then there's a little bit of uncomfortableness, and that's where the learning takes place. So we'll keep the conversation going here in future weeks, but as always, very, very meaningful. Thanks, y'all.